Welcome to the Marketing Cheat Code podcast, where smarter marketing creates accelerated growth.
Welcome back to the part 2 of the Marketing Cheat Code, the podcast where we uncover the strategies, innovations, and shortcuts that help businesses unlock sustainable growth. If you're joining us now, we're in part 2 of our conversation with Print Czar, Al Kennickell of the Kennickell Group. He is the president, and his family is the owner, the only family that has owned the Kennickell Group since its inception. And we would like to get back into our conversation. Thanks for joining us again.
My pleasure.
So where we left off was talking about profitability and competitive differentiation in the market of print. And I would love to pick up there.
Okay. Well, we talked about different things we have done over the course of our career and, what things made the biggest difference. And I would have to say that the one that made the biggest difference for us was when we decided to get ISO 9000 certified. And I really need to explain that so that people really understand. ISO 9000 really has no marketing value in the U.S. It's huge in Europe. In fact, in Europe, it's pretty much the cost of admission, meaning if you're a company in Europe and you're not certified, then you're probably not allowed to even bid on certain work. It's really the gold standard over there. But the U.S., it's not. It's just, it wasn't that way. But we had spent a lot of time trying to figure out, really, quite frankly, my goal was, how can I make our company so good that our customers come to us and ignore the competition? My goal was, we have got to be the best we can possibly be. And I really left no stones unturned to get there. And I started out with, TQM was the term back in those days. This was in the 90s, total quality management. But total quality management really meant a lot of different things to a lot of people. And there really wasn't a precise definition of what that was. You had people trying different things they'd heard that they were doing, that the Japanese were doing that were successful. And so I hired a consultant, and he was a guy that had worked with Deming, who really is the father of what you would say total quality management. He was actually, after World War II, he went to Japan, and because they were trying to rebuild the country, he actually installed all of these different practices that allowed the Japanese to be so successful. So the guy that I hired actually had worked for Kimberly-Clark running a very large paper mill. So he hired Deming to tell him how they could be better. So after he and I talked and had a few sessions, he suggested we get ISO 9000 certified. And the reason we did that is that there is a destination. Unlike if you decided we're going to institute total quality management, that really doesn't mean anything. But with ISO 9000, what made it effective for us is we set the bar very high. Our goal was, if we're going to go through this, we don't care about having the certification because nobody cares about that in the U.S. What we care about is we want to be an extremely well-functioning company. We want to be so good that our clients notice a big difference between us and everybody else. And we spent probably between 6 months and a year going through this. We probably spent maybe $250,000. Some of that was just shutting down the plant to have meetings. But the way we did it is we just asked everybody, each department, we said, you tell us how we should do things to make sure they work right every time. And the people in each department, they wrote all the procedures. And one thing that we did that was a little bit unusual is that we implemented checklist. And I felt like that if you're going to take off in an airplane, if you're a pilot for Delta Airlines, you're not going anywhere until you go through that pre-flight checklist. And I felt like if a checklist is important enough to where if people want to not crash a plane and keep everybody safe, they do a checklist first, maybe the checklist would work for us. So we came up with the checklist, and it went with every job, and it went through every department, and people used the checklist. And so, I mean, if it was in the pre-press department, they checked everything off that they had to do. The list went to the next department. They checked off what they had to do. And after a while, we realized our people were very happy to have that checklist because it really helped them not make mistakes. And the result was that we had two competitors that were always undercutting us price-wise. I felt like they weren't as good a company as we were as far as the equipment we had and how we operated. But, if I bid $5,000 for a job and they bid $3,500, sometimes people will go, you know what, that's a big enough difference, we'll let them do it. And what ended up happening is our performance became so good and so consistently good that the other guys, if they made what would be a little mistake that maybe nobody thought much of, the client didn't consider that a big deal, now all of a sudden little mistakes became a big deal because they were not used to having those things happen with us. And the net result is that if we bid $5,000 on the job and they did $3,500, they didn't get the job. So they all had to just keep cutting their prices to the point where they were selling jobs at less than it cost them to produce. Within 1 year, both our competitors were out of business. Now, that was never our goal. Our goal is always looking within. What can we do to be better? And but that really had an impact on us, and that was really effective. And what we do now is we don't actually still have the certification, although we perform and do everything just like we were. But what was happening is I was paying like $8,000 a year for the consultants to come in and do an audit. And they would come in and they would find nothing wrong. And I would say to them, in front of all my department heads, I might add, I would say, you guys come in here every year and you don't seem to find any mistakes that we're making. And actually the reason we're paying you $8,000 is we know we can't be perfect all the time. If you don't find something, I'm going to think you're really not doing a very thorough audit. So I challenged them, hey, come back here and tell us something we're doing wrong. And when they do that, you're allowed to fix it. But, after a bunch of years of that, we decided, we'll do some internal audits, which we do, but we're going to stop paying these guys to come in. So we don't really have the certification any longer, but we do everything exactly like we've always done it, and it didn't matter that we didn't have the certification. But that was a big deal.
Foundationally, just making sure you have standard operating procedures in any business is foundational to success. And it looks like it translates across various industries, including print, but even the parallel you drew to the cockpit and planes, the safety of planes, it's contingent upon them checking off a checklist. So that is really a profound statement to make in your industry, especially since you think procedurally this is something your team has done for years. It's just kind of second nature. Even you have to put.
One thing, I want to add one more thing about this, and this is true in a lot of different things that happens in management. Like, for instance, right now we're really hard pushing AI in our organization, and it's the number one goal. But when I had friends in the printing industry when I became ISO certified, and they wanted to pay me to come into their operations and help them do the same thing we had done. And I went to 2 or 3 of these operations, and when I got there, they had me talking with VP of manufacturing or plant manager, people like that. And the actual owner wasn't part of the process. And I told them, because I saw this happen time and time again, I said, if you're not, you the CEO, the owner, if you're not leading the charge and you're going to delegate this down to somebody else, it's probably not going to work. And, so I was the guy leading the charge when we did it. And I will tell you with AI, I am absolutely the guy leading that charge, because our feeling here is that with AI, there's going to be some winners, and there's going to be a lot of losers. And the people that think AI is not that big of a deal, if they're planning to work 4 or 5 more years, if they're older guys like me or whatever, if they're ignoring AI, I don't think they have any kind of a future, because it's going to be profound what's going to happen. And our goal right now with AI is we're trying to figure out, and we're getting pretty good at this, how to use AI to identify prospects and to know what to say to these prospects when we get a hold of them. And we think that the people that really master that are going to have a huge advantage.
Fascinating, and you led right into my next question. AI is definitely related to innovative future in operations. And you mentioned prospecting is the way that you're currently using AI. Are you also also looking at some predictive maintenance, automated quoting, or smart warehousing?
Well, let me say this. Now, with predictive maintenance, and I hear that talked about all the time. I've got different pieces of equipment here. I've got a machine, a high-speed inkjet press that I paid $1.5 million for from a very large company. My feeling is that very large company better be using AI for predictive maintenance. It shouldn't have come upon me to have to figure out how to do that with their equipment. So I'm going to say that I believe they're probably doing that. But let me go on to say this. I mean, we're using AI for everything from writing case studies to we're using it all throughout the operation. I'm just saying that me personally, I'm trying to work with my VP of sales to really master how to use it to get new business. Let me give you a great example of an AI tool that we use that a lot of people don't know about. But in my case, because we kind of control the market we're in right now, all of our new business comes from way outside of Savannah, Georgia. So everybody we're talking to, they've never heard of us. We don't know them, they don't know us. So all of our relationships start from scratch. There is a AI tool called Crystal Knows. It's crystal like in crystal ball, and knows, Knows. So what I can do, let's say we have identified using, and we use a number of different AI tools to try to come up with, who are the prospects that we need to talk to. In fact, my VP of sales said to me yesterday, he said, I was using ChatGPT for prospecting, and it appears that ChatGPT is significantly better at it today than it was a month ago. He said, I put in some information, I gave it some websites of good clients of ours, and it came back with much more detailed information. Even gave me the LinkedIn profiles of the people I need to speak to. So what we can do now with Crystal Knows, if I identify, let's say, Jack Smith is the guy we need to speak to in this company, I can go to I go to his profile on LinkedIn, and on that LinkedIn sits my Crystal Knows tab. I click on it, and within seconds, it looks at everything this person has written on the internet, on LinkedIn or anything else he's published online, and it gives me a very in-depth personality profile. And it says to me, this is how you need to speak to this person. This is how, if you're going to write an email, this is how you need to write that email. And because once again, I'm starting from scratch. We can't afford to have our first contact with a prospect to not be successful. So we use that, and it gives us a really good idea of how to have that first conversation. And we're having a lot of success with that.
That's one I've not heard of, but I'll be looking it up after we get off the phone. So you definitely are using it for prospecting. What about in your operation within the context of your
Yeah, let me tell you we just bought a new software. We all in the printing industry, probably like a lot of other places, we have MIS systems, and my MIS system is an EPS product. That doesn't mean that to anybody, but there is a new add-on that uses AI as well as Salesforce.com that integrates with my MIS system. And we had to upgrade our servers and do a lot of stuff. But we're going to start the implementation of this new system next week. And I will tell you, it's going to be remarkable what it's going to be able to do for us. For instance, right now, if we do an estimate, the salesperson will come in, get with our estimator, and we'll say, here's all the specs. The estimator takes that, puts it in an estimating program, comes back with pricing, gives it to the sales rep. If then the job gets entered, and we print it and we bill it. What's going to be happening is now we're going to have a dashboard for each of our customers through the software. The customer can just tell, either type into the dashboard what the specs are. AI is going to be able to see that. It's going to create the estimate, and we could have it give the estimate right now straight back to the customer, but we're not going to do that, because the big thing people talk about in the world of AI is human in the loop, meaning don't just turn AI loose and not monitor it. So way our system will work, customer will just tell the dashboard the specs. It will quote the job. It won't go to estimating. It will just be quoted. That will then be sent to the sales rep, who will look at it and make sure that the sales rep is happy with the pricing, then can submit that price to the client. The client will then just simply drag and drop their files, print files, into the dashboard. The dashboard will then take those files and direct them to the proper piece of equipment, and it will be ready to print. And so we're going to eliminate 3 or 4 people that used to touch that. And then when the job delivers, the bill will be generated. We'll once again just look at it to make sure we're happy with it, and then it sends it out to the customer. So we don't have an accounting department that has to do that any longer.
Wow.
So
that's the whole department.
Yeah, I mean, but it's with customer service. Like, we have a lot of customer service reps. Some of them are older and are about ready to retire, and when they retire, we're not going to replace them because, once again, this AI-driven dashboard, it will just tell our customer whatever, they can find out anything they want to know about the status of any of their jobs, where they are in our facility, without having to talk to somebody. And it goes far beyond even that. For instance, it will look at all of our customers, and it will tell us that customer XYZ normally would have placed 5 or 6 orders by now, and they haven't. So maybe you have a problem with that client. You need to go investigate. And then it'll tell us, here's what I predict your sales are going to be in the month of November based on past history. It's going to do so much. But here's one more thing. Everybody needs to understand this. Everybody has a website. Websites were configured for people to do Google searches. That's not the way people are searching anymore. Some are doing that, but now most of the searches are being done by AI. AI looks for something different than what Google looks for. So we are in the process of revamping our website to be AI search friendly. And one of the 2 things we're doing, I highly recommend anybody listening to this make note of this. AI, if you have a Q&A on your site, which a lot of people don't have, frequently asked questions. But put a Q&A on there, and the questions need to be the same questions people might use when searching for, like, a printer. For instance, embellishments is a big deal in my industry right now. That's with the soft touch and the spot varnishes, all these different things you can do. So I'll have a question that says, do you offer embellishments? And the answer is, yes, we offer embellishments. Well, if somebody searches for a printer, they may say, very well, I'm looking for a printer that has embellishments. Because AI will look at the Q&A on my site as one of the first things it looks to, it immediately sees I have that, and now I'm recommended to this person. And we put like 20 different questions on there that would mimic the things people might ask when they do a search. And then the other thing we're doing is this. In my industry, it's not common for people to give you reviews, because I have some customers who I'll do 15, 20 jobs a week. They're not going to stop and decide they're going to give me a review. So in our industry, we don't have that. But AI is looking for reviews. So what will happen when we send out, whenever we deliver a job, and we can set this up to where, and it's going to be interesting because we can set it up depending on the frequency a customer does business with us. We don't necessarily send them a link to give us a review on every job. We might just do it once a month for big clients, but new clients, we might do it with every job if they're not that often. But they click on it, and they can go right straight to giving us a review. They don't have to navigate any pages. And a friend of mine just put in the same software in his company, and he said that they went from having basically 2 or 3 reviews to, if you look him up right now, he's got like 150. And he's only been doing this for just a few months, but AI wants to see good reviews, and it wants to know what you do so that it can push you to the front of the line when people are trying to search. So changing your website to be AI enabled is pretty critical.
I don't think anybody has looked at their website through the lens of AI to think about how to structure it in a fashion that it can be picked up on all the searches and the parameters that people set forth in the search engine. So it seems like a lot of your business, your marketing channels come through referrals, but also direct sales. And I'm assuming digital marketing. Is there anything else you do to attract the right kinds of clients?
Well, one thing we did with AI was we went to We did this with ChatGPT. First of all, I use a lot of different AIs. People think of ChatGPT as being AI. It's one of many that I use on a regular basis. But when I've mentioned my VP of sales got some really good results, he just put the link to one of his best clients' website into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT went out and found a whole bunch of prospects that looked just like that guy's website. People that do the same stuff. And by the way, one other thing, the way I really got to reconfiguring my website for AI is I went to Gemini, which is now considered the #1 search engine. It is a Google tool, but it's an AI tool. I went to Gemini and I had a pretty good conversation with Gemini on what do I have to do so that you find me, and so really if you got a question on what you should do using AI, just ask AI and it will tell you. So I use AI as a business consultant. If I have a problem I'm trying to solve, I just get in a conversation, and sometimes these conversations can be 20 pages long. And I have a system. I'm using an AI tool called Bootlebox.ai, and with Bootlebox.ai I can start out with a question, and everything I put into Bootlebox, if I'm using ChatGPT in Bootlebox, I'm using Claude in Bootlebox, but everything I put in there is confidential. So I can put financials into ChatGPT through Bootlebox, and it's not going to get out into the rest of the world. So now I can use it as a CPA and everything like that. But what's great about Bootlebox is that I can start out the conversation with ChatGPT. I can then click on the ChatGPT icon, and up pops my 10 favorite AI bots I use. And I just click on, let's say if I want to change to Claude, I just click on Claude and I just simply say, do you have anything to add? I don't have to, put anything back in there. Also, this is important. Yeah, I mean, I can have 5 AI bots, debating one subject, and they can go back and forth and back and forth. But one other thing that Bootlebox is really good at is it's got a knowledge bank. So in my earliest days of AI with ChatGPT, I said, tell me what you need to know about my business for you to help me grow my business. And it asked me, probably 20 or 30 questions. So fortunately, I answered all those questions in a Word document, because I thought, maybe I need to give this to another bot at some point. So I had all that. But, what ends up happening is I put that Word document into the knowledge bank at Bootlebox. I put in there all the case studies we have and everything else I could think of. And now, in any conversation I have with any bot, whether it's Claude, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, every one of those bots has access to all that information about my company. I'll get in conversations and the AI bot will mention my kids by name. It will say, this would be really good for Andrew, and Casey would like this. So you want AI to know as much about you as possible. And once again, the easiest thing to do is just simply say, what do you need to know about me and my company to help me grow my business? I'll just tell you that, the thing that happens, I'm an older guy, so I got a lot of friends that are, retired or getting close to retirement, or maybe they've been working for a long time, and they see AI and they just don't want to have to learn something new. And everybody is constantly, those types of people will try to give me a reason why they're not using AI. Usually it's, I tried it and it gave me bad information. I mean, I told you I'm the leader of the pack pushing my company. And one of my department heads said to me, well, you know what? I asked AI, what's the price of gold? And it gave me the wrong answer. And I said to him, okay, which AI bot did you ask? He said, ChatGPT. I said, ChatGPT can't give you that answer. ChatGPT is a bot that has a tremendous amount of knowledge that's learned over time. If you were going to ask an AI bot, what's the price of gold, you would go to Perplexity. Or you'd go to Gemini. You go to one that searches the internet, because then it will tell you right at that very second what it is. But I've had these friends just, they now what I don't, if they're close enough to retirement, I just let it go. I'm not going to be preaching to them, because sometimes people get in their head that I'm not going to do this. But trust me on this, if somebody's watching this right now, if you haven't gotten deep into AI, Do it now before it's too late. And let me tell you a simple way to do it. I was at a conference, I got an introduction to it. Then what I did, I came back, and whenever I had a half an hour to spare, I went to YouTube, I typed in AI videos, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them. And I started watching these videos. I made sure they were 15 minutes or less, but I watched these videos and I just learned more and more and more. And then I started using it, and then I started having some success with it. And now it's what most people don't realize. They don't realize the dramatic impact we're going to see in the next 3 or 4 years. And let me be clear about this. It's going to be dramatic, but it's also going to be traumatic for a lot of people. Because in my first national AI conference, everybody was saying, the talking heads up there, AI will not replace people, but people using AI will replace people not using AI. The one I went to like 4 months ago, that's gone. It's clear AI is going to replace lots of people. And let me be real clear why it's going to happen. And it's going to take a big adjustment for the economy. But we're in a capitalist society, meaning we all compete with somebody else. If I can do $20 million a year in sales with 50 people, and my competitor does $20 million a year with 100 people, they're not going to be able to compete with me. And they're either going to have to make changes or they're going to go away.
Yeah.
And it's not a case of business owners are going to say, it's just really not right to replace these people with AI. What's going to happen is they're not going to have any choice if they want to stay in business. So I would just tell everyone, there's big changes coming, and you want to, if you're a business owner, you're in a really, really, really good spot. If you're not an owner and you can be replaced by AI, you need to figure out a way to bring something to the table where AI can't replace you. Because it's going to change. But, what people will tell you is, well, we've gone through big changes before. And they point to the Industrial Revolution. And they say, look, that was a big deal and we're all fine. What they don't know, because they haven't looked at their history, it took the middle class 90 years to recover once the Industrial Revolution started. So it wasn't a seamless, easy thing. It was a big deal. And once again, you have winners and you have losers. So, but the AI deal, got to do that. Hey, let me mention one other thing too, because the reason I'm going to bring this up is I'm actually trying to transition my business to my kids. And I've been doing this now, this transition for, it was actually the start of my last reinvention of the business, where I brought in high-speed inkjet and embellishment technology and things that other people didn't have. But I'm really, really trying to hammer home the one thing that I've done in my career that I believe has been the reason we've been successful. And that is that pretty much every Saturday morning for probably 30 or 40 years, I come into the office without an agenda. And I used to do it where I would just put a 8.5 by 14 yellow pad on my desk, and my thought process would be, what can I do to make this business better? And then what I've since come to realize by studying this stuff, I kind of was doing a sort of a form of meditation. But I would start writing, and sometimes I'd write 14, 15 pages. And then I would come in for maybe an hour the next day and just scratch out the stuff that didn't make sense and rewrite the stuff that was good and then implement. You've all heard the term, you've got to work on your business, not just in your business.
Yeah.
And I felt like that, my competitors were working, Monday through Friday, probably 8 to 5. I was probably working 7:30 to 6. But I know that most of them did not come in and really try to think, what can I do to win this game? And believe me, I look at business like a game. I played sports my whole life, played sports through college. I'm very competitive. And for me, it was just like practicing football. I'm in here trying to figure out how to get better. And so I've got my kids doing that, and I'm telling them, if you don't do that, you're going to be hurting yourself. And I'm also a big proponent of finding people in your industry that are not your direct competitors. Find people that are smart, get with them, and have a peer group and share information. And I've told people over the years, some of the best ideas I've ever had came from somebody in my peer group, and I just took it over and just implemented my operation. And I tell you, I'm doing this right now there's two guys in my industry that are really smart. We have a conference call once a month, the first Wednesday of every month, to go over any and everything new that they've done with AI. And we also have the same MIS software system. So rather than me trying to be one guy trying to figure out what's the next move, I get on this call, I share with them 2 or 3 things they hadn't thought of. They share things with me that I haven't thought of. So we actually have 3 heads working on this at the same time.
Right.
And I'm finding it to be phenomenally valuable. So don't just work in your business, work on it, but also get out of your business and go talk to people, other people. And if it's not your idea, that's okay. If it's a good idea and it makes you money, you just won.
Excellent, and an excellent way to end this conversation. You just shared a litany of cheat code there. Work on your business, not just in your business. Masterminds are masterful. Basically, iron sharpens iron. So what you have in your peer group is like a mastermind of powerful mental power in one group sharing knowledge. And also AI, don't be afraid of it, embrace it, and bring it into the business however you can to make the business better. Those were all very good points, Al.
Well, let me say this. You said don't be afraid to embrace AI. I'm going to say change that around.
Okay.
Be very afraid not to embrace AI, because if you don't, you have no idea what your competition may be doing with this, and you don't want to find out the hard way. So be afraid if you don't embrace it.
Thank you for giving us such an inside look at the Kennickell Group, as well as your industry, as well as your innovation and your forward-thinking spirit. It was just refreshing talking to you.
Well, I tell you, I'm at that stage in my life where I'm really trying. I mean, obviously I have a selfish motive. I've got 2 kids in this business, and I have spent the last couple of years trying to share any and everything that I can think of that worked for me that I think would work for them. So you kind of caught me at a good time, and I apologize if I came across as if I was lecturing.
No, not at all. This is what marketing cheat code is about, giving insider information to help businesses do better, to grow.
Well, come in with a clean slate on the weekend and just think. You'll be surprised at what you'll learn and what you'll come up with, what ideas.
For our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about the Kennickell Group, visit Kennickell. And if today's conversation sparked ideas for your own business, that's exactly what we do at Full Circle. We help companies bridge the gap between strategy and execution, whether it's unlocking profitability, modernizing marketing, or leveraging AI and automation to fuel growth. Be sure to subscribe, share this episode with a colleague, and leave us a review so more business leaders can unlock their own cheat code. Until next time, I'm Tracy Austin Grooms, reminding you the right strategy at the right time is your ultimate marketing cheat code. Take care.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you for tuning in to the Marketing Cheat Code podcast, where smart marketers unlock their next big win. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your favorite cheat code.